Dwight Yoakam was a pioneer in country music. He changed the genre by bringing back its honky-tonk roots during a time when pop music was popular. His unique sound and rebellious attitude made him stand out in the music business, winning him devoted fans and praise from critics. Even though he was successful, Yoakam suddenly disappeared from the public eye, which confused both fans and critics. What caused him to suddenly disappear? What kind of person was the mystery girlfriend that no one knew about? Also, where is Dwight Yoakam right now? We'll talk about these questions as we look into the sad specifics about his life. We need to figure out what happened to him before we can solve the mystery of his disappearance. How to get to know Dwight Yoakam. Dwight Yoakam was born in Pikeville, Kentucky on October 23, 1966. Pikeville is a small town in the Appalachians. A lot of people in Pikeville were close to each other and the area was rough, shaping the early life of Dwight. Ruth Ann and David Yoakam, his parents, were both hard workers who taught him the importance of sticking with something even when it gets hard. When Dwight was only 2 years old, his family moved to Columbus, Ohio, in search of better job prospects, even though the move took. Even after they left the hills of Kentucky, Dwight's spirit of the Appalachian area stayed with him and changed the way he thought about the world and the music he made later. As a child, Dwight grew up in Columbus in a normal working-class family. His dad worked at a gas station, and his mom did a lot of different jobs that will help the family get by. The Yoakams had a strong sense of family and community, even though they were having money problems. This gave Dwight a safe and loving home life. The themes of many of his songs come from the fact that he grew up in a family that values hard work and resilience. The show often showed the lives of regular people who were having trouble with life. Dwight grew up with a lot of music around him because both of his parents loved it so much. It was his mother who really liked old country music. She would play records by artists like Hank Williams, Johnny Cash, and by Patsy Cline. These country music stars were Dwight's first musical influences. They showed him the sounds and stories that would later shape his own music. Dwight heard more types of music on the radio stations in Columbus, which played a mix of country, rock, and bluegrass. He would listen to the radio for hours on end, taking in the melodies and words and dreaming of becoming a musician one day. Dwight had a unique view on music because of the rich musical culture of his Kentucky background and the variety of sounds from Ohio. He gained a deep respect for traditional country music, but he was also drawn to rock and roll's power and rebelliousness. In the end, this mix of styles would make his sound unique and set him apart from other country acts of the time. From a young age, it was clear that Dwight loved music. His first guitar was given to him They gave him when he was 6 years old, and it set him on the path to becoming a singer. Dwight spent a lot of time teaching himself how to play the simple instrument by copying the sounds he heard on the radio. It wasn't long before he realized how good he was at music. He started writing his own songs and trying out different styles and sounds. By the time he was in first grade, by this time Dwight was already showing off his growing musical skills by playing at school events and family get-togethers. After becoming interested in music, Dwight also became interested in the performing arts. He was in school plays and was very involved in the drama club. His participation in theater helped him improve He learned how to be comfortable on stage and how to tell stories in a deep way, both of which were very important to his music career. Dwight is a talented rock band player who stands out from his peers because he can connect with an audience through music and acting. Although Dwight was in high school, his love for music only grew. He got some of his friends together to form a rock band. Friends, where he was the lead singer and guitarist. The band played covers of big rock songs, but Dwight often pushed for more country and rockabilly songs, which shows how diverse his musical tastes are. When Dwight played in a band, he got a taste of what it was like to be a musician, and he loved the energy of live shows. The group played at venues and school events, slowly building a small but devoted fan base. Putting together the rock band was a turning point in Dwight's life. He got his first real taste of what it was like to be a musician by playing with other musicians and seeing how exciting it is to play in front of people. It also made him want to become a musician even more, even though he knew it would be hard. Dwight was driven by the band's success in his hometown, which gave him faith that he could make it in the music business. Even though Dwight loved music more and more, he at first tried to go in a more normal direction. After graduating from high school, he went to Ohio State instead of college. He was going to college to study history, but it didn't take him long to figure out that school wasn't where his heart was. He spent more time playing guitar and writing songs than going to class, because the call of music was too strong. Dwight dropped out of Ohio State after only 1 year to pursue singing full-time, which was a hard choice. The choice to drop out of college was not an easy one, especially since his family doesn't have much money. Dwight was set on following his interest, even if it meant not knowing what would happen or having trouble with money. He knew that he had to give it his all if he wanted to establish himself in the music business. With a guitar in his hand and big goals, Dwight set out on a journey that would lead him to the beating heart of the Nashville is a country music city. The humble roots and early life of Dwight Yoakam set the stage for his future success. He grew up in Kentucky and Ohio and started making songs when he was young. All of these events helped him become the artist he is today. His love of both traditional country music and rock and roll made for a unique sound that would become famous. Later made him stand out in the business. Even though dropping out of college to focus on music was a risky choice, it showed how dedicated he was to his work. This part of Dwight's life was just the start of an amazing trip that would take him to the top of the country music world and then out of the public eye in a cloud of mystery. But he had no idea that moving to Nashville would not be the dream he had thought it would be. It would put him in direct conflict with the business. Problems in Nashville and the move to Los Angeles. When Dwight Yoakam first got to Nashville, he was full of the hope and determination that young musicians who want to make it in the country music business often feel. But his trip was anything but easy. Nashville's music scene in the late 1970s and early 1980s was ruled by a polished sound with pop influences that appealed to the city's business people. Mainstream country radio didn't like Dwight's music because it was too raw and traditional. It had roots in honky-tonk and bluegrass. It was hard for him to get ahead in the business because his styles didn't go well together. Nashville turns down Dwight. Nashville's reluctance to accept Dwight's sound was a big deal, a problem. Even though he was very good at and loved country music, record labels and industry leaders kept turning him down because they didn't think his style would appeal to modern audiences. The refusal was disappointing, but it made Dwight even more determined. He knew. He was sure that his music was good and set out to find a place where people would enjoy it. Dwight learned from his many failures in Nashville that he couldn't follow his musical vision without sacrificing his artistic ethics. When he moved to Los Angeles, he had to look beyond the usual limits of the country music business. Los Angeles, with its lively and varied music scene, was another option. Nashville was mostly about mainstream country music, but Los Angeles was a mix of different types of music like rock, punk, and alternative country. This range of Dwight liked it because he saw a chance to make a name for himself in a city that was more open to new ideas and sounds that weren't the norm. Making the choice to move to Los Angeles was a big step in Dwight's business. That was a brave and risky move, but it showed that he was ready to, in charge of his artistic future. Dwight left Nashville to get away from the restrictions of the traditional country music business. He then moved to a city where he could combine his honky-tonk roots with the rougher, more rebellious parts of rock and punk. When he met Pete Anderson, this mix of styles would become a trademark of his music and set him apart from his peers at the time, which earned him a devoted following in the alternative country scene. Soon after Dwight got to Los Angeles, he met Pete Anderson, a great guitarist and director who would become one of the most important people in his career. The two men met by chance because they both loved traditional country music, even though the music scene around them was mostly rock and punk music. As a fan of jazz and blues, Pete saw right away that Dwight had a special talent and that his honky-tonk style had a lot of promise. Together, they quickly became good musical friends. They worked together, and Pete became Dwight's guitarist and producer for his projects. You can't say enough about how much Pete Anderson has affected Dwight's music. He helped improve Dwight's sound, which mixed traditional country music parts with more modern production methods that made the music appealing to a wider audience. Pete's skill as a producer also helped Dwight stay true to his artistic vision while making songs that were easy for people to understand and could sell well. Their work together. These events marked the start of a new phase in Dwight's career. He would become famous in a music scene that was both new and old-fashioned. From the first show Dwight and Pete did together in Los Angeles, they were quickly a part of the city's growing punk scene, cowpunk scene, a subgenre that mixed the rough energy of punk rock with country music and storytelling customs. Dwight's style fit perfectly with the cowpunk movement, which let him show off his honky-tonk roots while also accepting the rebellious spirit of punk. How he performed at Fans and reviewers alike started to notice him in local bars and clubs, where he would often play with punk bands. They were drawn to his real sound and charisma on stage. It was important for Dwight's rise in the cowpunk scene that he could connect with people who wanted something different from the popular country music of the time. His songs, which were mostly sad tales. People liked how honest and emotional his music was, and how it spoke to their struggles and determination. Dwight's music sounded real and grounded, which was different from the polished and commercialized country music that was popular in Nashville at the time. It was a welcome change that quickly earned him a loyal fan base. Strings. Cadillacs' breakthrough with guitars. Dwight's rising fame in Los Angeles led to his big break when his first record, Guitars, Cadillacs, etc., came out in 1986. The record did well with both critics and customers, and Dwight got a lot of praise for it, making him a big deal in the world of country music. Guitars, Cadillacs, the title track, was an instant hit thanks to its twangy guitars, catchy melody, and lyrics that praised the traditional country sound that Dwight had pushed from the beginning. Dwight felt good about himself after Guitars, Cadillacs did well. It showed that honky-tonk and bluegrass could still be popular in the music business. Moved away from its roots for the most part. The record had an effect that went beyond just being a commercial success. It also paved the way for traditional country music to become popular again in the late 1980s and early 1990s. The way Dwight can mix old and new things while staying true to his artistic vision won him respect from fans, other musicians, and people who work in the music business. Guitars, Cadillacs was Dwight Yoakam's big breakthrough. It was the start of a time of intense creativity and success. All the hard times he had in Nashville seemed worth it at that moment, when he finally found the fans and attention he had been looking for so long. But with success came new problems, and Dwight soon had to deal with the stresses of fame and the demands of the music business. This is what led to his strange disappearance from the public eye. Fans and enemies alike find it hard to understand. As his fame grew, so did the demands of the business, which would soon push him over the edge. At the top of his game, bold moves through the streets of Bakersfield. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, Dwight Yoakam's career took off, and he quickly became one of the most important people in country music. People really liked the way he mixed honky-tonk, rock, and country. People who wanted to go back to the genre's roots. The hit single Streets of Bakersfield, which he did with country star Buck Owens, was one of the best things that happened during this time. The song was a big hit. It went to #1 on the country charts, but it was also a metaphor for something. Passing the hat from one of the genre's founders to one of its most cutting-edge artists today. It was more than just a hit song when they worked together with Buck Owens. It was a statement. Dwight had always liked Owens and the Bakersfield sound, which was a type of country music that focused on twangy guitars. A rough, unfinished sound. Together with Owens, Dwight paid tribute to the past, while making his mark on the future of country music. This partnership showed how much Dwight cared about the past of the genre and wanted to keep its traditions alive while also pushing its limits. Even though he was successful, Dwight Yoakam was never afraid of trouble or disagreement, especially when it came to standing up for his work. Throughout his career, he was very vocal about his dislike of the Nashville music scene, which he thought had become too fake. Where country music comes from. One of the most important things he did was speak out in support of Johnny Cash after Columbia Records dropped the famous singer without a reason in the mid-1980s. Dwight spoke out against the decision, saying it showed that the business was putting more emphasis on making money than on art. Dwight not only defended Johnny Cash, but he also attacked MTV and how it dealt with country music. He didn't like how the network didn't want to feature country singers in its regular rotation. This, he thought, was part of a larger trend of pushing pop and rock acts over traditional country music. Dwight's willingness to speak out against these strong institutions made him known as a rebel. But it also made some people dislike him. Industry that were having a bigger and bigger effect on the careers of country acts. In 1998, Dwight released the record Buenas Noches from a Lonely Room, which added to his reputation as a rebel in the world of country music. Independence, the record, which had hits like I Sang Dixie and I Got You, was well received by critics and continued Dwight's trend of combining classic country sounds with more modern styles. Heartache, loneliness, and defiance are some of the album's main themes. Fans liked it, especially those who were disappointed by the smooth, polished sounds coming out of Nashville at the time. Better Nights from a Lonely Room wasn't just a group of songs, it was a statement against the mainstream country music machine. The music is rough. It was different from a lot of what was being made in Nashville because it was emotional and used traditional country instruments. It also made Dwight look like an outsider who wasn't afraid to question the status quo. This image of being rebellious made some country music fans like him. He had an audience that wanted something more real. But people in the business were also after him because they were afraid of his power. Even though Buenos Noches from a Lonely Room was a big hit, Dwight Yoakam was starting to lose popularity. Sales of his songs started to go down in the 1990s, which was partly because of changes in country music. The rise of country pop, exemplified by singers like Garth Brooks and Shania Twain, steered the industry toward a smoother, more mainstream sound that appealed to a wider audience. Because of this change, traditionalists like Dwight found it hard to stay relevant in a market that was becoming more and more focused on making money. As long as Dwight kept breaking Nashville's rules, the problem got worse. Because he wouldn't change his sound to make it more polished and radio-friendly, it was hard for him to get the same amount of airplay and advertising help that had helped him become successful in the first place. So, even though it got good reviews, drew away. His records did not sell as well as his earlier work, which was disappointing. This drop in sales was painful for Dwight, who had always been proud of his ability to stay true to his artistic vision. It also showed how hard it is for artists who refuse to give in to pressures from the business. As the 1990s came to a close, Dwight Yoakam became more and more at odds with the country music business is going. The rise of country pop changed the sound of the music and what people expected from it, which made it harder for traditionalists like Dwight to compete. Even though he kept putting out songs and going on tour, his impact on the charts decreased, and he had a hard time keeping up with the importance he had felt over the past 10 years. Dwight had a hard time staying relevant because of both his stubbornness and the fact that people's tastes in music were changing. Many of his peers changed with the times when it came to country music, but Dwight stuck to what he believed in. Dedication to the classic sounds that had made his work what it was. While his devotion to his roots was admirable, it made it harder for him to connect with the younger, more pop-oriented crowd that made country music popular in the late 1990s and early 2000s. Even with these problems, Dwight Yoakam's influence on country music could not be denied. He paved the way for a group of artists who wanted to mix old and new styles, and you could see his impact in the work of many alternative country musicians who came after him. But as the music business changed, Dwight had to face the hard truth that his time at the top of the charts was over. He would have to find new ways to connect with fans in a music scene that is becoming more marketed and competitive. The sudden disappearance before Dwight Yoakam seemed to disappear from public view. He made a number of key appearances that pointed to the end of an age. One of his last big public events was at Buck Owens' funeral in 2006. Dwight's attendance at the funeral was important and moving because they had been friends and worked together for a long time. In a moving speech, he paid honor to Owens and talked about how much he respected and admired the man who had been so important to his career. This show wasn't just not only said goodbye to a friend, but it also seemed to mark the end of a part of Dwight's own life. During this time, Dwight also showed up at a few other events, but his public appearances were becoming less regular. He still performed from time to time, but he was much less visible in the media and on the music charts. The once busy artist had been a regular presence in. He had been in country music for decades, but he was now performing less and less, which made fans and people in the business wonder about his future. People started to talk about why Dwight Yoakam suddenly stopped being seen in public as he stepped away from the spotlight. Some people thought he had lost faith in the music business because country pop and putting traditional country acts on the outside. Some people thought that Dwight had just chosen to live a quieter, more private life away from the attention of the public to avoid the stresses of fame. There were also reports that Dwight wasn't there because of personal problems like mental health issues. Some of his fans and the media thought that the stress of his work and the problems he was having in his personal life were bad for his health. Reports of Dwight's strange behavior and missed appearances fed these rumors, making many people think that he was having more problems than just problems at work. There are also tales about his personal life. There were also rumors that Dwight Yoakam was having money problems, which may have made him pull away from the public eye. One of the most important problems was a failed movie project that allegedly put Dwight's finances in danger. As an artist who had always been very active with personal challenges in musical and visual projects, Dwight had put a lot of work into this movie because he wanted to be more artistic. The idea did not work out, which was a shame, and a lot of money was lost. The changing environment made these money problems even worse. Of the music business. Album sales went down and streaming became the main way people listened to music. This made it harder for many artists, including Dwight, to make as much money from their music as they had in the past. These money problems were especially hard for an artist like Dwight to deal with because he had always put artistic ethics ahead of making money. Good luck. In addition to problems at work and with money, Dwight Yoakam was also facing big problems in his personal life at this time. It was said that his love and other relationships were tense, which added to the stress he was already feeling at work. Dwight had never been open about his personal life, but it was well known that he had had troubled relationships over the years, which may have made him pull away from the public eye. Dwight was having problems with his relationships, and people were also worried about his mental health. The stresses of having a successful career in the music business, which is always changing, and the problems he was having in his personal life. His personal life is said to have hurt his mental health. Some people who knew Dwight well said that he was dealing with sadness and anxiety, which were made worse by the fact that he felt alone when he was not in the public eye. These personal problems, along with his work problems, financial problems, painted a picture of an artist who was having a hard time finding his footing in a world that was becoming more and more different from his values and vision. Dwight Yoakam's sudden withdrawal from public view wasn't just a business decision, it was a sign of the many fights he was fighting behind the scenes. As the rumors and guesses kept going around, fans and people who work in the business were left. People were asking if the famous artist who used to rule the country music scene would ever come back. Mysterious persona and mysterious relationships. Dwight Yoakam was known for keeping his personal life very secret throughout his career, which added to the mystery and rumors about him. One of the most mysterious things about his love life is a mystery girlfriend from the 1990s. Even though Dwight is famous, he kept this connection mostly out of the public eye. This made fans and the media very interested. It has been hard to figure out who this girlfriend is because not much information has come to light. People who knew Dwight well say that this friendship was very important to him, but it was very private, which wasn't like him at all. The fact that this relationship was kept secret only added to his appeal as a public figure, showing a man who was both deeply passionate and very protective. As 1999 turned into 2000, Dwight's life changed. The problems in Yoakam's personal life got worse. Several of his relationships ended badly, which affected not only his personal life but also his public life and music business. Along with the difficulties of balancing his personal relationships with the demands of his well-known country music business, Dwight started to feel stressed. People often saw him as a lone figure, someone who had a hard time balancing the needs for real ties with the needs for fame. Dwight's loneliness was made worse by the fact that he rarely talked about his personal life in interviews. This meant that a lot of his love life was unknown. Dwight's mental health was bound to be damaged by these personal problems. Coupled with the stress of his job, the cost of failed relationships led to. According to some stories, he went through times of deep reflection and depression. Dwight's music has always been very personal and a window into his mind. During this time, it started to sound darker and sadder. Songs that used to praise honky-tonk's wild spirit now seemed to connect with ideas of longing, loss, and being alone. It was clear that his personal problems affected his music, as they became more clear in the words and mood of his work. Where is he now? Where is he now? Where is he now? Dwight Yoakam has mostly stayed out of the public eye these past few years, only showing up on rare occasions and working on projects that interest him, even though he wasn't there. Dwight is still a respected figure in the mainstream music scene. He is known for his contributions to country music and his unwavering dedication to artistic integrity. From time to time, he shows up for interviews or special performances that remind fans of the amazing ability and charisma that made him famous. He only shows up a few times a year, though. So many people are curious about what he does in his spare time. Dwight may not be at the top of the country music scene anymore, but his influence lives on. His contributions to the genre, especially his work to keep the traditional honky-tonk sound alive, has cemented his place in the history of country music. Albums like Guitars, Cadillacs, and Buenas Noches from a Lonely Room are still considered classics, and they've had an impact on a new generation of artists who respect Dwight's commitment to being true to himself. His fans, old and new, keep finding and rediscovering his music, which means that his influence lasts long after his peak years. Views of the public, fans and people in the music business look up to Dwight Yoakam with a mix of respect and interest. People who have been following his career from the start remember him as a pioneer who broke the rules of country music, while younger fans may see him as a mysterious figure whose music speaks to a different group of people. Even though he had problems, Dwight's image as an artist who is passionate and won't give up is still unblemished. Modern country artists look up to him as an inspiration because he didn't give in to the pressures of the business and never gave up on his artistic freedom. People still think of Dwight Yoakam as a country music legend, even though he took a different path. Took a trip. Being out of the public eye for so long only adds to his mystery, making fans and people who work in the industry wonder what could have happened if he had stayed more visible. Still, Dwight's heritage is safe, and his music will continue to speak to people who like the honest emotion and rawness that made his work unique. If you like Dwight Yoakam's story. If you found this video as interesting as we did, please like it and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth looks into the lives of your favorite artists. Also, don't forget to click the bell icon to stay up to date on our newest videos. Tell us in the comments what you found most interesting about Dwight's work.